This drip all on my body, soaking wet the Sani. Looking like a walking lick, yeah, you can tell I'm grinding. Rolling back was full of loud, I can't hear nobody.
What's up, fuckers? Episode 7, The Beer Latte Show. I'm the host, Steve, and today is brought to you by Double Nickel Brewing out of Pensacola, New Jersey, and we have 2 beers for them to try. The first one I might be most interested in, just to give it a try, is what they're calling a bourbon barrel-aged brown ale. So they took maple syrup from Vermont out of the maple shop, put it into the bourbon barrels, aged it for, it seems about 4 months of the syrup was in there, and then hooked it up with their beer. And now we got this concoctions to try.
Oh my God. I've never tasted anything so good. It smells good.
It's smooth.
Yeah. Smell it.
Smells good.
Yeah.
Smooth. Super dark. Like zero carbonation almost. That's good.
I like it because when I first smelled it, you can smell the maple.
Yeah, you definitely smell the maple.
I could taste it.
Oh, you can taste it, of course, but I mean...
Not of course, because typically when something's infused in something,
yeah.
I really don't even know. This I can tell.
I could picture me drinking this by a great fall night by the open fire.
Yeah, or just right now.
Well,
Yeah, it says laid to
As we're
rest
doing.
for 10 months in bourbon barrels that Vermont maple syrup was formerly aged in for 4 months. So this stuff has been sitting for quite some time.
We have to get this. Like, we have to get a case or something. That's really good.
Well, we have plenty right now.
Right. I'm just saying after.
I know, it is only a 4-pack, won't last long.
how much alcohol?
This one is 6.8%.
Not too bad.
No,
So
I like
it's
it.
good, though, but it's really good.
Like, I wonder how much after, like, one whole beer, if I would...
Get like full. I mean, it doesn't necessarily feel heavy.
Well, I mean, I like dark beers, so, like, I like the full. You know what I'm saying? Like, would I still smell it and taste it as well? Like, once you go through a case, like...
Well,
months
after
away.
a case for you, you'll be feeling a lot of different things.
I'm not a big dark beer drinker like that, but I actually really like this because it is smooth. And the more I'm drinking it,
Yeah,
it's
it's super
not.
smooth.
Yeah.
Wait, did you say bourbon?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so the bourbon barrel.
So bourbon is very smooth.
Right, so it's the barrel, I guess,
Yeah.
they purchased from or acquired from a distillery, that put some maple syrup in it, what have you, and then aged it for what seems to be 10 months.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah.
Like, really good.
Yeah. I'm super surprised at how good it is. I
You
think
know,
it's my new favorite beer ever.
You know,
that's
sometimes
fucking good.
you drink some beers and it has like that kick, like that bite afterwards.
Yeah.
No, not this one. This one's
Right.
actually very nice.
Right. Similar to like bourbon. Have you ever had bourbon?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, not
but it
everybody
doesn't, like,
has.
there's no kick to it. There's no nothing it's just smooth and like flavorful.
Yeah.
Some bourbons do have a kick, though. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, this being a beer obviously shouldn't, but some do have like an aftertaste or like
Oh, yeah. Like
a weird,
sweet.
like,
Yeah.
leaves you something on the tongue. With this one, it's just fucking good.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like it.
Me too.
Like, super good.
What's that next one?
So the next one is called Looper. I was told from them it's one of their most popular, I guess, IPAs there.
I like the can. It's pretty.
The can, when you guys see it on our social medias, at the Beer Latte Show on Instagram, or Beer Latte on Twitter, or the Beer Latte Show on Facebook, it is actually an interesting can.
It's like trippy.
It is.
Psychedelic.
Like, it really is. So this is a double dry hopped IPA, 6.3%. I would nearly call it a hazy IPA. As you guys will see, it is quite hazy.
Yeah, it's definitely hazy.
It's very
Okay.
smooth.
Yeah, it's citrusy.
Super citrusy. Again, super smooth. And obviously a favorite for me as an IPA fan. That's fucking good.
Yeah. I
I'm almost
agree.
getting some oranges in there.
Yeah. Or
Hence the
I
citrus.
mean, I always want to say grapefruit.
It kind of reminds me of like orange juice, the color of it.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Smells like it could be like
It almost seems pulpy.
you know when you put orange juice with champagne, that kind of look. That's what it looks like.
Mimosa.
Mimosa.
It is a beer mosa, which would be actually a really good name for a beer, but
I bet that's out there.
it could be.
Yeah, this one's good. I like it.
No, this is really good. So that is Double Nickel Brewing out of Pensacola, New Jersey. The website is dnbcbeer.com, Double Nickel Brewing Co. on Instagram. And we're going to have to get back to try some more.
Yeah.
So today we are talking with a guest, Chad Schreiner. Probably butchered his name. I'll have him tell us. But he is from Maryland. He wants to talk about his sleep paralysis he's a skeptic about ghosts. Now he's saying he had potentially saw shadow figures, was pulled out of bed, yanked out of bed, or tugged, or his bed was shaking, has seen things, and he's interested in, I guess, getting feedback from us about what he's, different experiences and talking it through.
Yeah, I'm psyched to hear.
Absolutely.
Chad, I don't want to butcher your last name. Why don't you go ahead and just tell us who you are?
Oh, my name is Chad Schreiner. Very nice German name.
A strong German name. My wife was correct. I just didn't trust her. Don't let her know that.
You should probably always trust your wife.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chad.
So Chad wants to talk, or we're all going to talk, kind of about supernatural experiences. He mentioned that a few months ago that you had an interesting experience, potentially haunted, you said, right?
Yeah, I guess you could perceive it that way. So this is probably back in January of this year. I was asleep. I went to sleep around 10:30, and then around 3 o'clock, I woke up and I could feel someone approaching me. I could feel something coming up to me in bed. And
So in your house?
in my
Or in your
house,
room, rather, but...
in my room, in my bed, next to my wife, I could feel this presence. And, it alarmed me. And I tried to move, but I really couldn't. I tried to figure out what it was. I tried to look at it, and I really just couldn't grasp what it was, but I could feel this presence coming towards me. And then when I felt it grab my shoulder, I was finally able to, jostle loose and look, and there was nothing there.
So you
And
actually,
obviously,
not actually, but you potentially felt that you were actually touched?
yes, I felt a hand on my shoulder.
Wow.
And so I got up and I, tried to walk it off. I went and got, a glass of water. And then
You're better than me, because I just would have went under the covers and be like, you know what? I'm not telling anybody.
And then after that, so from 3 in the morning to 8 in the morning was 5 hours of the worst night of my life. Every time I closed my eyes, I would hear people talking. I would hear yelling. I heard a chainsaw outside my window. I heard slamming. I could feel people watching me and touching me. And every time I closed my eyes. So it was the
Jeez.
worst night of sleep ever, right?
So you're only audibly hearing things, but now not feeling anything. Or not,
I-
I'm sorry, not seeing anything.
No, I haven't. I did see something this night. I'm getting to it, but I didn't see anything at that point. Every time I
So you're
got
saying you
my
were
eyes
closed,
open.
right? So you're saying you're closing your eyes, not necessarily asleep, but you're hearing a lot of shit happening.
and I'm hearing this stuff, and as soon as I open, it all goes away, right? But every
Huh.
time I close my eyes, it's all this crazy stuff for 4 hours. And then I finally got myself to get out of bed, and I start walking through the hallway, and I'm walking into the living room, and I can see, I remember everything so vividly. I'm walking, and I walk into my living room, and there is my cat who died in September, just sitting there where she always sat before, right?
Yeah.
And I was able to go up and pet her. And then I don't really know. It kind of went away, and I was back in my bed, and I overslept for work, and I was late for, my day and all this stuff. And it was a really hectic night, really crazy, like a night unlike I've ever had.
Now, did you tell your boss the reason you were late was you were haunting? You were haunted?
So I'm a videographer, and I had a shoot that morning.
Oh, okay.
And I showed up on the shoot, and I was, a little late, and my client was understanding, and I did explain the experience. I think a lot of people would experience something like this and say, wow, I was haunted last night, right?
I think I would probably be on that fence and say, what the hell was that? Not interested in sleeping anymore. I was haunted.
Yeah, I think if you didn't understand, the way of dreams and stuff like that, yeah, I would definitely say most people would think that.
Because it doesn't feel like a dream. So you say dreams, and normally you can tell. You can tell when you're dreaming, you can tell when you're not, and when you're awake. And this wasn't a dream. This wasn't me falling asleep. This was me literally laying in bed wide awake for hours. And every time I tried to fall asleep, there would be this, auditory attack on me, or I would feel something over top of me and grab my shoulder and whisper in my ear. It is so creepy to hear things whisper in your ear that aren't there, right?
Wait, so during that time frame, you said 3 to 8, you actually were never asleep. You were.
It didn't feel like I was asleep.
Or at the very least, you didn't feel like you were. I got you.
And what
So
about
what I'm leaving
your
out
cat?
here-
Your cat. Did you lucidly remember that
Yeah, that's
the
what I was
cat
getting
had
at. I
been
got- that was a little-
deceased?
Yeah, well, I knew the cat was deceased, and
Oh, okay.
I so what I'm leaving out here, and what we've talked about already, is that I suffer from sleep paralysis, and I've known about it, and I've had it for 20 plus years, and I've learned how to deal with it. So this whole time, when all this stuff is happening, I knew what was happening. I was aware. I was afraid, but wasn't. I was irritated, but not afraid, because I know I wasn't being haunted. But if you look at that from a different lens, if you don't know what sleep paralysis is, you don't know how to explain what's happening to you. It is not a far leap to go from this happened to there's a demon in my room, right?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely, without a doubt.
So, for people who don't know, sleep paralysis is a sleeping disorder where during the beginning of your REM or the end of your REM stage, your mind kind of becomes aware, but your body is still paralyzed because your brain paralyzes your body when you fall asleep, so you don't act out your dreams, which is actually another sleeping disorder where it doesn't do that and you do act out your dreams. And that's, I don't have it, but I've heard of other people that do.
Would that be like
And
sleepwalking then, or?
It's like this lack of serotonin.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, that would be sleepwalking.
All right, sleepwalking, right?
sleepwalking does that, and I do sleepwalk, but other people, and I don't know if you've heard of the comic Mike Birbiglia. He has a disorder where he acts out every one of his dreams, and he actually jumped out of a hotel window
Oh
one
my
evening
God.
because it was part of his dream. So this is kind of the reverse of that, where your brain wakes up, but your body doesn't. So you're paralyzed in bed, you can't move, but your brain is still in this kind of dream state where it's manufacturing things. It's making hallucinations. It's making auditory, visual, body sensations, and you feel like you're awake, and your eyes are open, and you can see things in the room. You just can't move, and you feel like you're being haunted.
But you did get up and move. So that's what's so
I didn't
weird.
get up and move.
Oh, you never did. It was just
I
a dream.
never did.
Oh.
It was a very lucid dream. It is this phenomena after sleep paralysis. It's really easy to fall back into a lucid dream-like state where you feel like you're awake, but you're acting out a dream, and it feels the same.
I've been
And that's
there.
what
Yeah.
a lot of people talk about out-of-body experiences, or they claim that they walked around when the ghost was there, or they got out of bed when they were being abducted by the aliens. And a lot of that is this kind of lucid dream that you fall into.
Let me ask you this. Were you under stress? Because I know vividly with when I had it a few times when I moved in my apartment years ago, and I was in extreme full of stress the entire time I was living in this apartment. And I had a lot of issues with my sleeping, and that was one of them. Did you have a lot of stress at that particular time?
So my sleep paralysis is triggered by a couple things. Stress is one of them, but sleep deprivation is another. And there were a couple nights that week that I hadn't really slept well. And this was like, I never go to sleep at 10:30. So this was like a weird night, because the last two nights I barely slept, right? So I went to bed early, and because I was kind of sleep deprived from earlier days in the week, I had experienced it. But when my sleep paralysis really manifested, I was 17, 18 years old, and I had the most horrible sleeping patterns. I was in a series of pretty negative relationships, and I was stressed out about, beginning college and different stuff. And it really got really bad for a while when I was younger because of that as well.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense, actually.
I was telling these guys that when I was, I guess, around the same age of maybe 15, 16, I would assume that I was awake, but I was being awoken by my bed. It felt like the bottom of my bed was being shaken, like taken up and down and up and down and up, and that's how I would wake up, but I really would never wake up. So like that's where my paralysis started, right then and there. And I guess I was under stress too. Did you ever have where you could actually awaken your physical body and try and get maybe your wife to wake you up?
I've learned how to wake up on my own if I
Yeah.
want to, just through time. Usually I am not in a sleep paralysis state for more than a few seconds because I've learned how to essentially just calm down and realize that this is not real and just force myself to wake up. So I haven't really tried to necessarily signal anyone
Have you ever
to
thought
wake me
about it
up.
while you were going through it?
Yeah, I have. I have been, because like 1 or 2 seconds in real life in this condition feels like a lot longer.
Right.
And I have tried to, but it you can't talk, you can't move, it doesn't work, right? You're just kind of
Right,
like
right.
stuck there.
No, I've
One
I've
thing I
done
wanted to
that.
say about the stress, and because for so many people, stress is a catalyst for a lot of sleeping disorders, and a lot of sleeping disorders are kind of compounded on top of each other. So you're not just talking about sleep paralysis, you're talking about sleepwalking, sleep talking, narcolepsy, a whole assortment of things get kind of compiled on top of each other. And the more stress you have, more often they come out. But you see in a lot of people that suffer from sleep paralysis is that they do stress out about it a lot, especially when they believe that it is ghosts or aliens or demons. And they believe that when they go to bed, they're going to be visited by this devil incarnate, right? That's going to drag them out of bed.
Well, yeah, that's gonna compound your stress right there.
Yeah, and it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling thing because they never learned how to rationalize it and turn it into something they understand. They just, think it's demons, and of course you're going to be afraid.
Oh yeah, they're associating it with demons because I guess they must believe in such a thing. I don't know if it's true or not, but if they are believing in such a thing, yeah, they're screwed, I guess. They're always going to think that. They're like, and that's where you see those different like exorcism happening and all that stuff because maybe those people are just sleep deprived for all we know.
Well, not only that, I mean, it feels so real when you're going through it. Like it could be a mixture of a lucid dream and sleep paralysis, or a lucid dream right into sleep paralysis, just like
What Danielle was
that's
getting
it.
at, my wife, when she said, have you signaled anybody, is this could potentially be the only time it's ever worked. But I
Yeah.
guess she was in and out of a lucid dream or sleep paralysis, and I'm a heavy sleeper. There's people move, she does whatever. When I wake up is when like the sun comes up. I'm like a farmer or something in the past life.
Yeah,
sun goes
he can
down, I'm
sleep
down.
heavy.
Sun goes up, I'm up.
Yeah.
But she actually cried,
Yeah.
like real tears. I woke up, I looked at her, she wasn't awake, and I shook her. Maybe that's the wrong thing to do. And she was like scared, out of her mind. And I was like, why are you crying? And she told me she was like basically stuck and she couldn't move. And it happened. You said you
Well, no,
basically
I was
woke
trying
up, but
to
you kept,
wake up from my dream. This was a lucid dream.
right, but you kept waking up, what, in your dream, kind of?
Yeah, and that happens a lot. That's always happened. And I'm always trying to find a way to scream and throughout the years, I mean, I'm 47 now. I should have realized it's never going to work.
It's not working.
But I did realize this last time, and this was, just a few weeks ago, right, Steve?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago at all.
No.
Yeah, within a month, I'd say.
I realized that I'm crying. I'm crying in my dream, and it's actually, and once I woke up, it's actually coming out. So that's the only way I was able to get him. So apparently your eyes could work somehow. I guess, was I making a sound as well?
Well, yeah, you were physically crying.
Yeah, yeah.
Like she had tears and she was like really crying. I'm like, what the hell's this?
And
what do I do
meanwhile,
now?
I'm like, yes, he woke me up.
Yeah,
Finally,
I'm
it
like,
worked.
oh, what did I do?
I'll tell you with my apartment situation was I didn't know anything about the sleeping disorder, so I was under a lot of stress. I was a supervisor. Basically mine was like not every night, but it was like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and I really chalked it up. I was being haunted because my apartment complex was an old hotel converted. So I would get up in my afternoon nap before I would have to work the night shift. And I noticed I would be waking up and I would feel a choking sensation, like someone was choking me, and I would hear a guy's voice saying, "You're not going anywhere." Until I started reading more into the sleep situation, I really thought I was haunted. I kid you not.
Well, I mean, I guess that's how they, people who believed in like incubuses and succubuses, they were those demons that would sit on your chest.
Unless it was like another her saying like, we don't need to go to work today.
That
She's
would've been
also
great.
Yeah. She's also coming from a standpoint where she's like, I don't want to put you on a spot or whatever, but you're a heavy believer in ghosts, I would say,
am.
right?
I'm
So
a
of course,
healthy.
to you,
She's
You-
healthy.
I'm a
She's a
healthy
healthy
believer.
A healthy believer. Like, I don't believe in every little thing. I try to find answers, but for the longest time I was like, oh, I'm haunted, this place is haunting me. And then, my roommate was like, the place is haunted, so she wasn't helping anything. But then when I started doing, research on it, I was like, whoa, I'm not the only one, and this is normal,
Right. Well, what I was getting at is like that's where they could have come up with those demons that sat on your chest or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they didn't understand, like Chad was saying, they didn't understand what sleep paralysis actually is.
Yeah, a lot of phenomena seem to have their roots in a lot of different either sleeping disorders or other type of mental disorders, right? And with sleep paralysis, I think you have things like succubus, and you have things like it's called the old hag syndrome because there people claim to see an old lady sitting on their chest choking them.
Oh, shit.
Um, I also feel that it is mostly to blame for most of our alien abduction phenomena and of other related subjects like hauntings and demon visitations and things like that. Because once you actually experience it, and then you hear people tell their stories of being abducted by aliens, and you're like, oh, wait, that happened to me the other night. But I know I wasn't abducted by an alien, right?
as far as you know. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I felt myself being pulled out of bed before.
Oh, God.
To preface the alien thing, I have a couple feelings about that. I 100% believe that there is other life in our universe. We have an infinite universe. We cannot be the only planet that has evolved life. That is ridiculous to assume that.
I agreed.
It's funny you bring that up because literally last night, recording another episode was about like
Aliens.
and how we feel about them. And we're on the same page. We all feel like it'd be silly or ignorant to think that how could we be the only things out there?
Mm-hmm. But to also assume that they've somehow come up with a technology to travel to our planet, and the best thing that they've figured out how to do is terrorize a bunch of people in the middle of America, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. So I think there's a middle ground there between understanding that it's likely aliens exist, but it's also unlikely they're terrorizing our poor, crazy people in the middle
Right.
of America, right?
Right.
Also, on that note, I've seen a UFO.
No.
In life, I've seen an object dashing across the sky that looked like it was a star until it started flying across the sky so fast that like that's not a plane, and then stopping on a dime and then flying back to the other side, and then it just jetted off into space, right? I've seen that.
And wait, where are you located again?
I'm in Maryland near Baltimore.
Okay.
I was at the time when I saw this, I was in Southern Maryland, across from the Potomac from Virginia. And on the other side of the Potomac, there's a large Air Force base, and I'm blanking exactly which one that is, but it would have been in that direction, right over top of where this Air Force base is. And so I've seen that, and I do believe that UFOs are a real phenomena. I've seen the video of the Phoenix lights. I've seen other things that are, you cannot deny that this is something that's happening.
Right.
I don't
But
want to cut you off, but
Yeah.
just to go back to that other part there. How long ago did you see that?
Oh, I was like 10.
Oh, okay. The only reason,
Yeah, that wasn't reason.
and I was just waiting, I was getting happy, but I just knew that there was no chance. But literally, not even what I told just last night, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I was on the Garden State Parkway. We're in Jersey, and same thing. I was like, oh, it's a star, but then it stopped. It zagged or whatever, and it went all different ways at speeds that are unlike anything else, movements that are unlike anything else, and then again shot up like what I would call, I guess, straight up into the sky and disappeared. And I was coming back from a job far away from the office at the time, and I got back to the to the shop there, and the other guy got out of a different truck. He looked at me, and I was like, "Did you?" He's like, "Wait, did you?" And I was like, "Oh shit!" So if you would have said it was in Jersey not so long ago, that would have been crazy. But
Yeah. Now, my brother and I, we were younger at a family house in Southern Maryland, like a vacation house, and we both saw it. Yeah. So I believe that UFOs exist. I don't know if just because I saw something weird in the sky, that immediately means that there's aliens.
true.
And mainly what my outlook on things are when it comes to sleep paralysis and ghosts or UFOs and aliens and all these things is that there are things that we don't understand. There's things that we see that we don't understand. And jumping to your favored conclusion over trying to figure out what it is not only just not the best way to approach life, it also can be a little dangerous because I've seen people that suffer from sleep paralysis that have completely ruined their lives because they have never tried to just approach it from a rational point of view. And when you go to bed every night thinking a demon's going to get you, then your demon is going to get you and then you're not going to be able to sleep and you're not
Right.
going to be able to function.
So let me ask you a question. Did you ever decide to like videotape yourself? For like a session to see what is actually going on when you're sleeping?
I have not videotaped myself, no.
That would be interesting if you did.
You could be your own next client.
I've seen videotapes of people in sleep paralysis in documentaries that are talking about the demonic side of it, and I haven't seen any real evidence that anything happens
Well, they
other
might
than
just be
maybe,
playing into that, to scare people or to interest people or what have you.
yeah.
Well, I mean, when Cassidy's my daughter, up until the time she was 9 years old and got her tonsils out, she used to have night terrors. And when I tell you, it was every single night, and it was always prefaced by like a little cough. I never realized she wasn't getting enough oxygen because she had big tonsils. But when she would wake up, her eyes are already brown. But when she would wake up and she was actually still sleeping, her eyes were black. So I mean, things like that, I mean, could lead anybody to go down a rabbit hole, you know?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
had night terrors when I was a kid too. There were a number of instances where I saw things that weren't there, and so there's different types of night terrors. They kind of range from you get up and you start going crazy about all this stuff you see, but you don't remember it,
Right.
or you remember it as a very lucid dream, or you remember the whole thing. So when I was like 4, I had a very, very intense night terror where I was being like chased down by giant bees, and I have a extreme phobia of bees lifelong. I'm still like, if a bee lands on me, I go crazy, right?
Oh God.
And but I had this very it happened. I ran into my parents' room. I was screaming at the bees chasing me. I was seeing them chase me around the room. They're like, "What the hell?" Right? And like they have no idea what I'm talking about. And then later, when I was around 20, I was in a really stressful relationship, a really just bad relationship, and I wasn't sleeping well. And like like I mentioned earlier, all of my sleeping disorders were just like going insane. I was in bed with my then girlfriend, and she told me, and I don't believe she has any reason to lie to me about it, but I don't remember it. She told me that I sat up in bed and started hitting the wall and screaming at the corner, telling someone to get the F out of my room, and like just went insane. And then she's like, Chad, can like what's going on? And I'm just like, don't worry, I have this. And then went completely just insane on the wall, started yelling at it again. You experience that from the outside. It's like, who is this person? Why is he talking to
Yeah, I'd
someone
be
who's
like, you
not
know what?
there?
It's been fun. Goodbye.
Wait, but
Yeah.
but she saw you do it, and you have no recollection.
Yeah, I have no recollection. So night terrors kind of range, and I've had night terrors when I was younger where I remember it, and I have night terrors as an adult where I don't. And I mean, I've slept by myself with no one in the room very often from, most of my life. So who knows how many times I experienced that and no one was there to comment on it, right?
God, I would almost want to
Yeah, it's
lock you in
true.
a room just for your own safety. Like that's what I wanted to do for my daughter.
Jeez.
Because one time we pulled up on the side of the house and she hadn't been having night terrors in a long time. She was now older, but she was outside the house. The only way you would know is if you're looking in her eyes, like I said. And because I mean, she looked demonic. She really did, because she already has the brown eyes. And so when she started talking about like Chinese food, and we're like, what? I'm like, oh, Cassidy. So then you just walk her right back to her room. But I mean, she was outside and we weren't even there yet. It's a scary situation.
So this was just a couple months ago. I got out of bed, I guess, and I woke up. So like my house is like a rancher, so it's a single floor upstairs and then a basement. I woke up halfway down the stairs to the basement. I have no idea why I walked in that direction, right? I was just walking into the basement apparently. And that's happened a few times where I've woke up in the middle of going somewhere,
Thank
and
God
but
you
I've never
woke up.
left the house. That does scare me. And my father-in-law, he sleepwalks, and when he was younger, he apparently there was a cemetery near his house, and they found him walking around the cemetery.
Oh no.
Oh,
See, now
man.
you wonder why people think they're like, I mean, right
Mhm.
there, forget it.
He was actually possessed.
He was definitely waiting for the
Yeah.
dead.
No, I understand completely, and I guess, and one of the reasons I wanted to get on the show with you is because I think it's important to kind of spread the word about some of these things, so maybe people can start to understand what potentially is happening instead of jumping to the extreme. And because, like I said, sometimes jumping to the extreme can make it worse. So, like, one of the things that I've seen lately that bothered me so much, it just like made me so frustrated, is there was on YouTube, there's a documentary called The Entity, and it's a sleep paralysis documentary, and it's not particularly well done. It's okay. But there's a man in there, his name's Ted Philip Hone, and he has suffered from sleep paralysis for a long time, and he feels like he hears demons and sees demons and all these things that we've been talking about, right? And then he goes to his pastor to get help, and his pastor, instead of trying to talk to him about these real things that could be happening to him and comforting him, his pastor just fills him with all of this, you're possessed, you have a demon in you. He does all these exorcisms. And this guy, his life is a living hell now because he just can't get over this. One of the things that, and I don't do it enough, I feel like it's really important for people to understand that sometimes what they're doing, what's happening to them, is just their brain lying to them, and understand that, as people, our brains are not perfect and they make mistakes, and there's a lot of problems between what is actually happening, what our eyes see, and how our brain interprets that. It's kind of insane how much our brain can manufacture with things that aren't there. So you can see a glimpse of a person out of the corner of your eye that isn't there because your mind is making up that information. But most people, when they see that, they say, "Oh, I saw a ghost."
Right.
I gotta say, prior to you talking about this, it never really dawned on me as like one of an explanations that it could be.
Yeah.
Like, it honestly opened up my eyes. So now I'm even more of a skeptic. But I just have a quick question to you. Are you saying, or do you believe at all of like ghost? I'm not saying like you yourself, you're good. You're not, you're not being haunted. But do you believe it's a possibility to somebody?
Okay, so I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in spirits. I don't believe that there is anything more to our bodies other than what is here. I think that most of the time, when people claim to have seen a ghost or a demon, or they claim to have all these things happening to them, I think most of the time a reasonable explanation for that is probably something like a night terror or sleep paralysis, some sort of anxiety driven
Sleep
disorder,
deprivation. Yeah.
sleep deprivation, and other things. And I think a lot of times when you hear their stories, a lot of times that stuff comes up. Like, I wasn't sleeping well, or I was stressed out with work, or things like that, or I was stressed out with being in a home that I wasn't comfortable in. Another thing is children, and children, adults will talk about how they had all these haunting experiences when they were kids, but a child's recollection of their life is very flawed. Memory is not accurate in any way. And
Right.
and even now, I mean, all the time, my wife and I have different perceptions on what happened in a conversation, much less whether, I saw something that wasn't there, right? And I think most instances can be explained by something like that.
No, I understand what you're saying. Like, you could see something, and Steve and I could see something. Danielle could see the same thing, and we're all seeing something completely different based on our background.
Well, it's our perception on whatever.
You know,
Everybody's perception
If
is
potentially
different.
some of these, so you have like a sleep paralysis, but you have a strong basis of you love horror movies and you believe into it.
Yeah.
So now you have a sleep paralysis night or something like that, and the first thing you're going to assume is, oh shit, it's me, I'm haunted.
Well, what's the age in which I think there's a certain, I want to say 5. I could be wrong, but before, let's say the age of 5, I believe we can't differentiate our dreams from reality.
I also believe that there are a lot of things in the world that we do not know the answer to. And I think that if some of this stuff is happening that seems to be inexplicable, I think that our best answer sometimes is, I don't know. It isn't always, oh, that was a ghost, or that was an alien, or a demon, or that was God, or whatever, right? I think sometimes the answer is, I don't know. So if something falls off the wall and you don't know why, then maybe it's better to just leave it at I don't know versus making up reasons for why it fell off the wall in the first place.
Right, because you're always going to find that reason.
Which is generally bad.
Those reasons are confirmed by your individual biases.
Right.
So when did you start realizing, like when did you get better, let's call it? When did you say, you realize, this isn't me, this is what's happening, so on and so forth?
So when I was a child, I had these night terrors when I was younger. And I remember a few of them, and they were pretty vivid dreams that scared me a lot. But then they kind of went away, and I didn't really experience that for a while. But I do remember when I was like 5 or 6, I think my great aunt died, and I was very close to her. She lived like a couple of houses down the street from me. And I remember seeing her while I was sleeping in a very similar sleep paralysis way. So I think that my sleep paralysis manifested a little bit when I was younger, but it really came into full force when I was around 15 or 16. And between 16 to 19, I thought it was just a really weird reoccurring dream where I woke up and I couldn't move in bed. But after it started happening enough and it started being like, what is this? I started doing research, and I went on Google and I said, I wake up and I can't move. And there was a plethora of people talking about this and explaining it, and it was just so abundantly clear that I was suffering from sleep paralysis. So I read some information about how to manage it, and obviously the best way of managing is just to have healthy sleep practices, but I am notoriously bad at that. I usually don't go to bed till 2 a.m. and I wake up at 8, and sometimes I stay up all night, and sometimes I don't sleep for 3 days, and so I'm really bad at all of that.
Yeah, apparently.
Well, I think that's a common thread that him and I have. Like,
Oh yeah, she's always up often.
Mhm.
I'm the complete opposite. There's times I really want to stay up, and I try, and I just pass out. I don't know what happens to me. I have like the complete opposite. You say you can stay up. I can't stay up for shit.
I can't fall asleep sometimes for shit.
Right.
And
It's
she's super mad at me. I'm like,
it
oh, it's
doesn't
time to go to
matter.
bed after I fall asleep on the couch, mind you, for a couple hours. I go to bed and I just pass right back out. She's like, what the hell? I wake up to like text sometimes, how'd you fall asleep? I'm up all night, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I was fine.
Yeah, I'll text him at 2. I'll text him again at 4, just because I want him to realize that I'm actually still awake. I have to talk to somebody.
Where I'm like, with me, I fall asleep by 11 o'clock, but most nights I'll sleep until like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. But like 2 times during the week, I get up at like 3 in the morning and I'm up. I'm exhausted, but I'm up. But I think it's stress,
Yeah.
You know what, Chad, do you ever have like a lot of lucid dreams? Have you done that your whole life?
I do. I have lucid dreams enough that it's a common thread for me. I think most of my dreams, if I remember them, are lucid or it's sleep paralysis, and that happens depending on the month and how stressed I am. It usually happens 2 to 3 to 4 times a month, the sleep paralysis, and then the rest of my dreams are either fairly lucid or I don't really remember them that well.
So, and we're on the same page when I say lucid. You're sleeping, you're dreaming, and kind of can just do whatever you want at that point.
Yeah, I can interact with things. And then after a certain point of me interacting, I kind of wake up because it breaks it.
Yeah,
I
same here.
can't hold it for that long.
Right.
And that's actually something I've been working on, is not only taking my sleep paralysis into lucid dreams, but practicing like sustaining them. One of the things I wanted to point out is the reason I went and saw my cat in the living room is because I've been trying to practice when I get into sleep paralysis to, try to make myself go into these dreams. And then as I was, lucidly dreaming that I'm walking down the hallway, in my mind, I was like, well, what if I saw Rem around the corner? Right. Rem is my
Right.
cat. Sorry. Coincidentally named
REM.
after the sleep cycle. But and so I kind of manifested her for myself, and it was more of I wanted to see if I can do this because I've read about a lot of people that do,
Right.
and I wanted to see how far I could take it. But if you think of that from another point of view, if you think it from, I am a grieving wife and my husband died, and all I want to do is see George, and I fall asleep and I have sleep paralysis and I think George is in the room, then your mind, I've already proven that I can will my dead cat into existence.
Right.
Now, I know that was intentional, but imagine what your subconscious can do as well. And I think that's why a lot of people see those things, is because they are subconsciously kind of manifesting these images of things that they really care about.
Well, I mean, it could go both ways. Not that I'm trying to disprove you, because I'm kind of on the same fence as you are right now. But if you are indoctrinated to think that you can see dead ones when you're sleeping, and if you're using sleep as a catalyst of some kind of spiritual awakening, and we all are energy, that if there is spirits on the other side or entities, that maybe they can will themselves more easily in your dreams. Maybe you did see your cat.
That is possible.
Oh, so you're saying, Danielle, that
Right.
if you're so open to it, it makes it easier for them to make that connection, if
Perhaps.
it's such a thing.
Yeah.
I got you.
So I can understand both
Or
sides.
right, or Chad's saying basically that you want it so bad that you didn't see shit. It's just yourself. You wanted it, so
Right, which is
therefore
more
there
like it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I get it now. No.
Yeah.
I think that explanation, I mean, it's as possible as any other possibility. The difference is that there's no evidence for it. So it's a possibility that, okay, it's also possible that there's a unicorn in the sky that makes it rain, right? But we don't know. And all the evidence is pointing towards it not being that. Right.
Right.
All the evidence is pointing towards our mind manufactures things that we want to see.
Right.
And I think that that's more compelling evidence than ghosts or my cat, decided to haunt me.
I mean,
Was a cat black or no? I'm just kidding.
She was long haired, black, and like some brown highlights.
Sounds scary to me, but whatever.
That's like my death cat.
What about the people that dream and the next day they remember their dreams? Like I was watching something.
That's everybody.
But what I'm saying, like I was watching an episode on something where a kid got these numbers and someone told him to play these numbers in their dream, in his dream, I should say. And then the next day he played the numbers and he won.
Literally happened to my aunt. She was given numbers. She wrote them down, didn't play them. They came out.
But what I'm saying, what is that then? You know, I mean, I understand totally what you guys talking about, but also too, is there another thing that we don't know about?
Well, I mean, you can go as far as anything there. You could say time, being that time and space don't exist, that he's already seen the numbers because they've happened. There you go. That's
True.
your explanation if you're really searching for one.
Yeah. Well, it falls under the I don't know, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly.
That does. It falls under
Could
the
you
I
leave
don't
it at the
know.
I don't know? Yeah. Yeah.
And I tend to leave it at the I don't know. I mean, I think at best it's a coincidence. I think that with most psychics and premonition based things, the trend tends to lean towards their counting the hits, but ignoring the misses, and the misses tend to be more in number. So you have, these people that say, I'm a psychic and I can help you find your child. And, they do all these things to gather information and to try to come up with a solution to this problem. And a lot of the things they say when you go to a psychic and you talk to someone are not correct, but then they really hone in on the ones that are correct. So for all those things, that kid probably had hundreds of dreams where nothing that happened was correct. And then one dream, there's a connection with what happened the next day or the next week or the next year even. And they're clinging to that hit and ignoring all of the other times where they weren't guessing the future.
That's like what you say, Steve, all the time. You're like, it's like throwing crap up against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm only going to promote the good stuff. I'm not going to tell you about all the shit that didn't work.
However, there was a dream I had when I was little. Now I'm older than, most of you guys, but I had a dream that I invented. There's this whole line of strawberry shortcake people, and like boys don't know this probably, but like strawberry shortcake, they smelled and everything.
Yes.
Well, I totally invented the particular purple pie man of Porcupine Peak. I swear to God, I invented this guy. And like a month later, this damn thing came out.
Wow.
I was like 5. But who knows? I might have seen something,
I do video production, editing, and animation as a profession, right? And whenever I'm really stressed out about a project, like how do I make this work? How do I visualize this concept, this abstract concept that I don't really know? There isn't an easy way of putting visuals to it. Oftentimes, I will have dreams on how to do it. My brain has worked out that problem in my sleep for me. And it's happened a number of times, probably 3 or 4 in my career so far, where I've dreamed how to do this certain thing. That doesn't mean that I'm a psychic and I'm, visioning what I'm going to do the next day. That means my brain has been actively working on this project in the background. Just because I fell asleep, it didn't stop working. And my dreams are a manifestation of that.
Right. Where there's less distraction, and now you've
Well,
come up with the answer.
that's what I was about to say. It's like basically same thing you just said, Chad. So you already had the answer. You just didn't figure it out while you were awake, basically. So you dreamt about it, but like you said, you were still working on it somewhere back in there, and you figured it out. Happened to remember it, luckily, and then you're good to go.
Right, right.
Mhm. I wanted to say something else, and this kind of ties back to the question about when the sleep paralysis started for me. The first incident that I had, and it's one of the few times that I've seen something. So it started off, my first incident, I saw an entity. And I've seen an entity a few times. I've seen this shadowy figure from across the room, or these eyes looking at me or stuff like that. But the first time I saw an entity, and it was this very shadowy figure sitting at the end of my bed, and the voice that I heard was my mother's. My parents got divorced when I was 10. I don't have a relationship with her. I haven't for a very long time. So when I was 15, 16 years old and I saw my mother in my bed, my reaction wasn't, what is this monster doing in my room? My answer was like, what the hell are you doing in my room? Get out, right? Because you're not even supposed to be in this house, right? And I was confused, not scared.
But
And
it
I think
didn't look
that's
like her, right? It was.
no, I couldn't really get her into focus. It was like she was just a blurry figure, right? But her voice was there.
Right.
Huh.
So from that, I think that my immediate response was, oh, that was a dream. I'm not being haunted. And I never really saw demons again, right? I never, so I think that, and sometimes, I mean, depends on who your stressors are and who you're afraid of and who you don't want to see. And at that point in my life, and even now, if my mother walked through the room, I would be freaked out that she's there because I don't have a relationship with her, right? And I think that's why she manifested instead of something else. But I think it's all the same. I mean, people are seeing things and they try to explain it. And one of the reasons why I was able to nix the whole demon thing right away is because the first thing I ever saw was my mom, not some scary devil, you know?
Well, that goes two ways. The first time I had sleep paralysis, or the first time I think I had it, I was, I guess, getting into my teen years, and I opened my eyes. Everything was black and white. Everything in my room was black and white. And for some reason that was unacceptable to me, but it was normal. And I saw a wolf near my television,
Hmm.
which I never could understand. But then my daughter also has had sleep paralysis on a few occasions, but it scared her so much. She saw a shadowy figure, but it wore a hat and it didn't have a face. And she was only a little girl. I mean, and she wasn't looking on the web or anything, but it could have just been a manifestation of whatever she thought was scary.
Or a cartoon she happened to have watched that had a bad guy per
Yeah.
se, and
Yeah.
there it is, and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if you took it to the next level, you
Right.
know, yeah.
So that tall man with a hat visualization is actually pretty common. And
I did look that up. You're right. It is.
I don't know what the reason for that is, and I'm not afraid to say I don't know. I don't think it's because there's some hat-wearing demon that terrorizes our children. I think
I was gonna say, how casual of him.
Well, if
I
you
think
think
it's
back at like Poltergeist, did you all ever see that? The first one?
Yes.
That guy had a hat. I
Wasn't
mean,
he-
not like my daughter ever saw him before, but like maybe notoriously throughout the years, we've just been conditioned.
I think he was the Reverend.
Yeah, the Reverend. Yeah. The creepy one.
I do think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of cultural conditioning on what we think is scary or what we think is possible. And that's why certain people see aliens or certain people see demons or whatever, because it's all kind of goes into what their brain goes to. But I also think that humans are more alike than they're not alike. And our brains work very similarly. And I think that it's not ridiculous to me that different people in different situations can hallucinate a similar thing because of how much us as a species we do have these similarities across how we think and how we do things. And you see that going back in history where you have cultures from across the world that do similar things, right? And have similar stories and similar types of stuff that maybe aren't connected from they learned it from them type of thing. Maybe it's more of this is how our brain works. So, I mean, there has to be a reason why. And obviously this is subject to debate because I am an atheist and other people aren't. But I think that there has to be a reason why everyone across the world develops some sort of religion that we believe in gods without anything to really provoke that, right?
See, the other day we chalked that up to being a way to control people. So if you believe that I have to do good because I'll get to a heaven, okay, you want to do good. If you don't care because I want to be reincarnated, I just kill everybody. If I get killed, I'm just somebody else again. Maybe you're like a loose cannon. And if you're believing, like I say, a hell, and you're a super bad person, I don't want to go there. We were kind of not necessarily, saying that's the reason, but it was brought up often, I guess, for my brother's not here, as saying like a possibility of like kind of where religion could have came from.
I think that's where organized religion really got its roots. I agree. I think other
Totally.
religions,
The
just
churches, Catholic.
general, belief in gods, I think ultimately comes down to exactly what we've been talking about for most of the evening so far, as not being able to answer a question with I don't know and having to look for other answers, and different people come up with different answers. So trying to figure out why, the sun comes out every morning, and some people are going to say, oh, there's a sun god, and you have a bunch of sun gods throughout history, and rain gods and gods of war and gods of this and gods of that. And I think that ultimately humans want an explanation. They tend to be driven towards the fantastical, and they want things to be big, and they want to have meaning, and they want to have purpose. But ultimately, they're just trying to answer a unanswerable question, and they're too afraid to say, I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean,
And-
that would give us no purpose then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, you just don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, and nobody wants no purpose.
Oh, exactly. Now, without answering, I don't know. We talked about it in a different episode. What do you think happens after you die?
I believe that my brain will cease to have activity, and I don't know.
So you're going with
Depending
like,
on how much my wife follows what I believe in, I doubt I'll go into a box, because I think that's a complete waste of time and space. But
He's just like us.
well, for
Yes.
instance, like we were throwing around the ideas because obviously we don't know, and that's the true answer. You know, potential reincarnation, heaven, hell. My brother said he thinks truly nothing happens. Like, this is your one shot, do whatever you want. At the end, it's just nothingness.
I think you got to think about what it was like before you were born, you know?
Which, as far as I know, is nothing.
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense.
And-
I just showed up here.
Yeah, and I think we show up, and I think we leave. Ultimately, like I said, this is an I don't know question, because no
Right.
one is able
Yeah, I
to
was just
answer
curious.
it. At the end of the day, the only insight we have into what it's like to no longer be alive is what it was like before we were alive, and that answer is nothing.
That's true. That's a good way to put it.
So far, unless we know somebody who knows something more, which then we're just taking somebody else's word for it.
She's just trying
A
to
lot
find
of-
an answer.
A lot of people claim to know something more. I would be surprised if they actually do.
Right. Well, I did meet this girl in high school. She claims to have remembered prior to birth.
And what hospital is
That's
she in
weird.
again?
She was a very, in my defense, she was very strange, and I happened just to be seated next to her. But hey, you never know.
That's true. We
I think a
just
lot of
don't
people
know.
feel that way.
Yeah.
And they claim to have past life experiences and all these things. But I think, I mean, a number of them who, when you actually go to confirm what they say, there's no evidence of the people actually existing. And then even if the people they do claim that they are did exist, what is your evidence as a skeptic person, if you are one, that that person didn't, do some research and is just reciting what they read off the internet or read out of some public records? And in my opinion, anyone who's claiming something supernatural, something that is beyond what we can experience, if they are claiming it and the information they're using to prove it is available publicly with some minimal research, then I have more evidence than they have that they're faking it, in my opinion.
No, I like that answer. So, Chad, let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, I host a bi-weekly podcast called Script Prompt 2, and we improvise unique television and script film concepts based on random creative prompts like genre, setting, character, and prop. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Script Prompt 2, and you can check us out on our website at scriptprompt2.com.
Well, Chad, I think it was a great time having you. And I think, honestly, we'll talk to you in the future. You're a great guest, and everyone should be sure to check out your podcast, too.
Oh, thank you so much. I would love to come back. It's been a lot of fun.
That is the Beer Latte Show. Everyone can find us on Instagram, the Beer Latte Show, also on Facebook and Twitter at Beer Latte. See you guys next week.
Yeah. This drip all on my body, soaking wet the sunny. Looking like a walking